This is Sean with PoleSmash.com. This video will present to you how to create a rub for your pork. So we use it on our ribs and use it on our pork shoulders mostly. This video is going to show you the main ingredients in that recipe. It's going to tell you why you use the ingredients in the recipe. So that, if you're going to be following along with our recipes for how to create the barbecue that we think is a great barbecue for summers, this is where it all begins. Begins with the meat, begins with the rub. So the first item that we have in the recipe is 3/4 cups of dark brown sugar. The importance of the dark brown sugar I'll get to in a minute, but just the main difference between light brown sugar and dark brown sugar. Brown sugar in general is just basically white sugar mixed with molasses. The more molasses that is mixed in there, the darker the sugar. So dark brown sugar has more molasses, therefore it is a little bit sweeter. There's 3/4 cups of that. There's also 3/4 cups of white sugar. You might wonder why I'm using half white sugar, half brown sugar. Why not just use one or the other? And the reason for this is that white sugar, the way that I understand it, burns a little quicker. So I want part of the rub to have the white sugar in there because I do want a little bit of I don't want to call it burn because that sounds not tasty, but I want a little bit of a bark to the rib, okay? Whenever you're smoking meats, if you have a little bit of a bark or a crust to it, I think that's good. The white sugar will enhance that and promote a little bit of a barkiness to the rib. The brown sugar then is mostly to make up the remainder of the sweetness. If I were to have a cup and a half of white sugar, the bark would be too burnt. So the dark brown sugar adds the sweetness without promoting as much of a burn to the rib. I could be wrong about that, but that's the way that I understand the chemistry of the ingredients and why a recipe would have part white sugar and part brown sugar. Third main ingredient here is paprika. I've seen very few rubs without paprika in it, so it's a must ingredient in my opinion if you're going to have a rib rub recipe. You can get any types of paprika you want probably for this and experiment with them. I'm just using a basic Spanish paprika out of a can. The fresher you get it, the better, obviously. So that's something you can experiment with. There's different types of paprikas. Experiment with your own unique rub. But since I use a lot of paprika, I buy the big cans because it saves me money. Fourth ingredient is 1/4 cup of garlic powder. You could use granulated garlic or garlic powder. I don't really know if there's much of a difference, but the garlic powder here that I use is, again, it's just out of a can because I do use a lot of garlic powder. Again, you can experiment with the fresher garlics. Obviously, you don't want to use anything wet for this because it's a dry rub recipe. But any types of the powders or granulated garlic would probably work for this. And I have 1/4 cup in there. I think garlic is one of the main flavors for meats. So that's why I consider these 4 that I have in this bowl the main ingredients of the rub. And if you look off here to the right, you see a mixture of a few other ingredients. Instead of separating them out for you, I've already just kind of poured them into the bowl, but I'll let you know what is in there and how much of it there is. First, at the bottom of the bowl, you can't really see it, I have 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper. Every once in a while, if I want to kick up my rub a notch, I'll put white pepper in there. White pepper is not as flavorful, but it has a little bit more of a heat to it. In this particular case, I'm opting for more flavor, so I think the black pepper is a better choice. You can try substituting for white pepper if you want to make your rub, if you're someone who likes really hot, spicy rubs. So there's 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper. Also, there's 2 tablespoons of ground ginger powder. Some people may not like ginger. I would strongly encourage you to not leave this out of the recipe. It's not going to dominate the recipe. There's also rosemary and thyme in there, and some people may not like that. I'll get to those in a minute. I would not leave any of those out. Start with this if you're going to go with this recipe. I have 2 tablespoons of ground ginger in there, like I said, and I think that somehow it really works wonders with the rest of the ingredients. Also in there are 2 tablespoons of onion powder. And I have one, before I get to the rosemary and thyme, I also added a tablespoon, or 2 tablespoons of salt. Correction, that's 1 tablespoon of salt I put in there. Okay. Sometimes I'll opt for not putting salt in there because salt does draw a little bit of the moisture out, and a lot of the ribs anyway are already prepackaged and injected with salt solutions, saline solutions. I've seen arguments that suggest leaving salt out of rubs altogether. However, I've also heard from many, trained chefs that say, without a doubt, any spice mixture, you must begin with salt and pepper, hands down. So I am opting for the professional's opinion on this. Not that people who do not use salt are not professionals. I just think that people who are more well trained than me use salt. I'm going to opt for them on this, but I did cut down. Instead of using 2 tablespoons to match the black pepper, I'm just using 1 tablespoon of salt because I don't think you need all that much of it. There are final 3 ingredients in here. 2 of them I think are absolutely necessary for this recipe. The other is kind of a little addition that I made to it. The first is I have 1 teaspoon of rosemary powder in there and 1 teaspoon of thyme in there. I think these herbs are wonderful. They give a nice organic flavor to the rub. You're not going to notice it, so if you're someone who does not like rosemary and thyme, it's not going to dominate the rub at all. It's not going to destroy it for you, but it does add a complexity to the rub that I feel is a must if you're going to do this rub. It adds a really, really, really nice background touch to it. So rosemary and thyme, you can experiment with maybe tarragon, I don't know, or maybe 2 tablespoons of thyme or 2 tablespoons of rosemary. I like the combination of teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of rosemary, 1 teaspoon of thyme. That's the combination I like. The final ingredient I have in there is just 1 teaspoon of coffee grounds. You might notice in the background there the coffee grinder. I actually use that coffee grinder to grind up the thyme and rosemary as well. But I also use that to grind up fresh coffee beans. To me, there's nothing worse in the world than coffee beans that are pre-ground. Sometimes they're obviously necessary when you're making coffee at locations that you can't control that, but to me, grinding up coffee from the beans, there's nothing better. So to add that into my rub, I feel is a nice little addition. I love the subtlety that the coffee brings to the rub. It's not by any means a coffee rub. There are coffee heavy rubs. This I feel just adds a little bit of a boldness to the rub and a little bit of almost a dryness to it that I really, really like, a dry richness, if that makes any sense.
So that's basically it. I just put all the ingredients together into a bowl, mix them up nicely. I'm going in there right now just to kind of break up some of the bigger chunks. The chunks are there because the brown sugar was still fresh and it was moist. It's not a problem because when I put it into a storage container with a tight lid, I shake it very aggressively and those chunks break down and it becomes a very fine, well blended rub. And that's it. So take this rub. We really encourage you to use it on your pork ribs or pork shoulder. It's excellent on that. It's also great on other meats, so feel free to experiment with it on other meats. It even works well on vegetables and potatoes and some other things as well, so play around with that. Also, follow us here on YouTube and check out our Backyard Barbecue series, where we walk you through how to create a whole bunch of great side dishes, sauces, and of course how to smoke ribs in a way that you're going to be able to please a large audience. Finally, when you're done, make sure you go to polesmash.com at the link provided below so that you can vote on your favorite style barbecue. On a final note, I feel that most great recipes are borrowed from other great recipes. This recipe started from Meathead Goldwyn's recipe on AmazingRibs.com, and I've tweaked it to my personal liking over the course of the last couple of years. We're not associated with AmazingRibs.com, but on a personal level, I feel it is one of the best barbecue websites on the entire internet. There's a great amount of useful information on there, and you can find almost anything you need to answer your barbecue questions. We provide a link to that below so that you can visit it and check it out for yourself. Enjoy your barbecue.